Welcome back to One Piece Anime Review Part 7. This reviewing two arcs of the series. The first one okay, is the Diary of Koby-Meppo. Koby-Meppo. The other one is The Garden. Now, the thing about this particular two-parter, the Diary of Koby-Meppo, this covers a lot of cover stories. Yes, this is based upon a cover story that covered. It was the second one they ever did. It covered covers 83 to 119. Yep. Yeah, my guess is the reason why that Toei Animation decided to adapt this particular cover story. There's probably a couple reasons for it. Number one, the first one that they did, where they adapted the first ever cover story, the one featuring Buggy, which that was important. They had to adapt that one to explain his return in the Rogue Town arc and his alliance with Alvida. That was perfectly fine, and that was well handled. That was a great story. This one is kind of like two episodes featuring Koby and Heppo. Yep. The first one basically is them at the same Marine base that they were last seen way back in episode 4. Actually, it was like episode 3. Yeah, at the Aromatic Sound. That's pretty much where they were. Now, they did make a brief cameo appearance in episode 45. And they're just chore boys because I think they weren't exactly old enough to join the Marines. I'm not sure what the reason was. But they're basically clean for a while. And here's the thing. Axe-Hand Morgan is here. Yep. He makes his return to the series in this one episode. Yes, Axe-Hand Morgan. He made previously one-off appearance also in episode 45, basically getting his reaction when Luffy got his first bounty. Yep, and pretty much it's like, okay, and he's being transferred to Marine headquarters for court-martial. And who's there to escort him? Vice Admiral Garp, aka Luffy's grandfather. Though, at this point in the series, they don't say he's his grandfather until post-Eros Lobby. Also, when you see him, he's wearing a dog mask. Why in the world? I get the fact the whole thing is an old dog, fine. Why he's wearing a dog mask for? Well, here's the thing. He's also the first Navy Admiral, he's actually like one I've seen in the series, to, believe it or not, have his own personalized bow. Because the only one I can think of who actually had this was Nelson, but he was a filler character. But he's the first canon character to do this. He's also technically the first Vice Admiral to introduce in the anime. Because it seemed like, though, that the highest ranking introduced for these characters was Captain. So basically, they're going to transfer him. He, of course... And then, of course, we have Axe-Hand Morgan escapes after slicing up Garp. Apparently, he was awake for 5 straight days, eating donuts. Yep. So he escapes. Axe-Hand takes his son hostage, because of course he can, and he sets off. The Koby goes to rescue Hippo. Doesn't get back Axe-Hand Morgan. They only get kicked out of the Marines, but Garp's like, "I'll take these two. Don't worry about it." And they go off. And by the way, that's the last you'll see of Axe-Hand Morgan because he has not appeared since then. He has never appeared after this because this is episode 68 for the series. This was his second return he made to the series. It had been 23 episodes since his last appearance in the series, and after this, he never appears ever again. As a matter of fact, I think he's maybe mentioned in a flashback in the Reverie arc, but that's it. That's all you see of Axe-Hand Morgan. He disappears and is never seen again. By the way, Koby and Heppo are still in the looks they had before they should return to Eros Lobby, where they're actually grown and they actually look like Koby looks like he's actually a lot thinner. Yeah. So they're taking directly to Marine headquarters where they do kind of the same thing. They'll do like 1,000 chores. So they also decided to build their bodies while they're at night. Garp apparently has no problem with this at all, though he overhears while they're talking to mention that Koby is friends with Luffy. Luffy being Garp's grandson, though. They don't say this at this point. He probably reveals this later. And so he basically takes him out, like, "Fight me." And they take off their shirts and they fight him. And of course, he's very impressed with the fact they built their bodies. but he was basically testing their minds. And they passed because they got good determination. And they have training, and, well, they just end the story there. It's kind of strange they adapt this. I don't mind them doing these side stories now and again. But it's kind of weird, though. They haven't done one. Now, in case you're wondering, what was the third cover story that was done in the manga? Django's Carnival Festival. Yes, Django, the guy who appeared in Syrup Village, who was left behind by his own crew by accident. Now, in case you're wondering, does he return? Yes, he returns later. Though the strange thing is, that cover story was never adapted for the main series. Unknown why it wasn't, it just wasn't. It was loosely adapted for an OVA. I am not kidding about that. That's pretty much what they did. They adapted that cover story for an OVA. Do not know why they did that for, but they did. And it's unknown why that Toei decided to stop adapting the cover stories, especially since a lot of them are really interesting. Like there's one which this was actually adapted, but for a light novel. It's basically Fire Fist Ace's search for the Blackberry Pirates. That would have been so cool to actually see that. Nope, we have that for a light novel. No, I had not read it yet. But for the story, it sounds so like the cover stories are, in my opinion, are just as interesting as the actual arcs in the manga themselves. And the cover stories can make excellent episodes of the anime, but they just choose not to. They have occasionally gone back to basically adapting cover stories, mostly as flashback stuff. But now the current one they have right now in the manga is Gangbanger's All My Family. That itself would make a great little two-parter. Like, because it is so fascinating how interesting this story is. Like, Gangbang goes to Dressrosa in the basically, his group basically survives the events of Whole Cake, which, okay, that was great. They confirmed that. And later on it was confirmed that Jinbei and the Sun Pirates, they confirmed they came back. But it's unknown what happened to Sanji's family. It's unknown if they survived. Yeah, it's a complete mystery. They haven't really, my guess they didn't really solve it. So he goes to Dressrosa in the aftermath of what happened in the Dressrosa arc. It still looks like the way it was at the end of that arc. And he basically is there looking for his sister-in-law, Lola, or his wife, Clifton. They do find her in the course. They hook up, and the last chapter that came out had them meeting up with his actual with his wife's father for the first time, though he doesn't know it yet. That would be interesting if this, but I think the current cover story arc in the manga would make a great set of episodes. I'd say at least 2 or 3 at most. Yep. What came? Oh, by the way, what was the Straw Hat Crew doing in this thing? Well, they had them basically stopping and going in this arc. They did pretty much like, oh, they moved for a little bit, then they stopped. It's kind of like, then what was the whole point of coming back to them? At least in the case, the bugging release was interesting. At least they weren't like in the middle of an actual major story arc. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the first season was basically adapting the arcs they covered for that one. That's part of the East Blue Saga. This is basically part of Baroque Works. This second season of the show adapted like pretty much the first 3 arcs. Whiskey Peak. Well, basically Verse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, Little Garden's third one. The 4th arc part of the saga is not technically anything to do with Baroque Works, which is Jump King. I'll cover that next part. But now I'll talk about Little Garden, roughly an 8-episode arc, which was the same amount as Goodbye Island. Yep, and this one covered chapter 129 of the manga. Yep. Now, it was revealed at the end of Whiskey Peak by Nika Robin. At this point, she's called Miss All Sunday. I'm not sure what was the point. I get some of the reason with these holidays, but why All Sunday for? It makes no freaking sense. Though she does return at the end of this arc, just like she appeared at the end of the previous arc. Yep, they actually arrive at Little Garden. No problem. They get no problem. And apparently they're having to figure out exactly how long it takes to reset the log post. It's revealed by a couple new characters, Dory and Broggy. Yeah, 2 giants. which they mentioned these guys several times since this arc ended. I'll get to more of that. So they get to the island, and of course, the first people off the ship is Luffy and Vivi because they want to explore the island. Okay. And Zoro and Sanji go on a hunting expedition, leaving Nami and Usopp by themselves. Yep. And eventually they're found by Dory. Yep, Dory. Now, Broggy, when I saw him, like, yeah, because I remember there was a character that looked almost exactly like him that appeared in the Dressrosa. It could be distant relative of his, but that will be interesting if they find out if he actually is. But basically, he's the same exact character design because Oda loves reusing character designs. Yeah, apparently these two guys are here at Little Garden because they're in a duel. They don't really remember exactly what was the duel about, what was the reason being, because they've been there for 100 years. Though it's hinted at that the reason why at the very end was a hunting quest. That was the reason why they were there. During the first show, it was pretty cool and ended basically in a draw. Now, Dory carries around a big hulking axe, while Broggy carries a big sword which has got jagged edges on it. Probably because of all the years basically to be on the island. First match ends in a draw they hear, and then they go off and they have some alcohol that Dory gave it to Broggy, and of course they have some beer. And then the beer explodes, thanks to the debut of two new characters. We have the debut of Mr. 3. And as far as I know, we don't know his real name. Nothing I can think of. And his partner, Miss Golden Week. Yes, in case you wondered, Miss Golden Week, she's named after the actual holiday week that it says celebrated in Japan. Yeah, that's an actual holiday week that I believe is in March, if I'm not mistaken. Though it's not an American holiday, it's a Japanese holiday. So I get the reason why Oda decided to name her that, because I think Golden Week is kind of associated with children, so I get the reason why for that. And she has the power. It's a moody power. Basically, she paints on people various symbols to make what the mood is. Mr. 3 is a candle man. He makes stuff out of frickin' wax to come out of his body, which that's quite interesting. And then we see the return of Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. I'm like, that's interesting. Yeah, they come back for this arc, and they don't appear again after this. I think these two appear. I think Miss as far as I can tell, I know exactly what happened to these two after this arc. I know Mr. 3, I know where he ended up. Miss Golden Week, I know where she ended up too, but not these two. Nope. Oh, by the way, one thing I should mention about Mr. 5. He speaks like a 90s style black gangster. That's how the English dub actor basically portrays him. I don't know if he is black, but that's how he portrays him. Probably because Mr. 5 is black, so they portray him like an actual black man. Though he doesn't speak in jive, which thank God for that, though. That's just so stereotypical, basically. People think that's how black people talk. They don't talk that way. Anyways, he, of course, is here because they're brought in by Mr. 3, who he's taking orders from this time because they're filling the previous arc of the series, where they got beaten up by Luffy and Zoro. Though Miss Valentine surprisingly looks perfectly fine while Mr. 5's got a bruise on his cheek. Yep. Oh, and there is actually a continuity error here. Like, when they have the barrels, it explodes. It's later revealed to be that Mr. 5 did that. Yep, he did that. And despite the fact that Broggy is wounded, he still wants to do the fight because their signal is basically a volcano. So he pins Luffy in order to make sure he doesn't interfere. Vivi, of course, is shocked at the fact that this fight, and Dory wins his battle with Broggy, despite the fact he finds out later that it was fixed. He doesn't like the fact, so he kind of basically cancels the victory after finding Mr. 2 was apparent. Also, Zoro and Sanji fight over who's got the bigger thing. First, they come across. Now, Sanji comes across a T-Rex, while Zoro finds a Triceratops. In the case of Sanji, he kind of wins. He gets back to the ship perfectly fine. And then he takes his saber-tooth tiger, which he somehow beat up, basically a bruise on his head. he walks over the thing and he comes across Mr. Three's hideout. Yep, his hideout is wax block, which they showed previously in the early portion of it. Mr. Five is there, and apparently Miss Golden Week is so lazy she can't bother the move. She just stares at the tea, and Mr. Three is like, "Can you just get that yourself?" Like, okay, fine, here. Yeah, Miss Golden Week is so lazy. She is by far one of the most laziest characters I've ever seen. She doesn't like to do anything at all. She prefers to sit around and do nothing. And she, oh yeah, I'm bored. While they're at Tropical Resort. Oh, and this resort is basically an island with a giant tree on it. And they're on a building on top of this tree. My only guess is that people who were on this island must have hollowed out this tree to hold a building on one of its leaves. Yeah, that or the leaves made metal. By the way, I do not know what the name of this island is. It appears briefly at the beginning of this arc and then never appears ever again. How in the world that Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week got up there and got back down is never shown. It's just some resort they just happen to be. By the way, the Straw Hats never go to this island. Nope. So, at one point in the arc, Nami and Zoro are taken captive by Mr. 5. Probably guess that's payback for what happened in the previous arc. And Mr. 5 comes across Luffy, who's still pinned, and Vivi. Of course, they found them because of Cutter. And he basically blows up Luffy several times. And then Luffy decides to, like, I'm angry, so he spits on Mr. 5's foot. He gets angry and basically proceeds to beat the crap out of him, what caused a lot of explosions. And then Cutter basically decides to dig him out of the thing anyways. Usopp decides to run by, and, well, he helps Luffy out. And what happens with Vivi, Zoro, and Nami? They're put in a giant wax cake, which they can return the wax statues along with Dory. Yep. And Zoro basically starts slicing up his own legs. By the way, these scars still remain to this very day. Though they're never seen particularly, so... And of course, Zoro decides to get one of his swords, like, oh, I'm going to pose basically doing this. Because he felt like it. And eventually, because Luffy was taking so long, and because that the Baroque agents basically kept distracting him, eventually he's able to destroy the wax and free his comrades. The Nami ends up burning her shirt in the process. She was wearing a long sleeve shirt in this arc. So basically, she's basically in her bra right now. Yeah, it's a good thing she didn't end up naked. That would be kind of dumb. Now, what's Sanji up to? Well, he basically he gets contacted by Mr. Zero, aka Crocodile, which you finally get a chance to hear the man's voice for the first time. You kind of see him a little bit later in the final episode. Like, he goes, oh yeah, like, he goes to the Crazy Cafe. I can take your order. I guess that's probably a play on the fact he used to work for an actual restaurant. So I was like, is this Mr. 3? He said, yeah, this is Mr. 3. Did you eliminate him? Yeah, I eliminated him. And then all of a sudden, the unlucky show up. And here's the thing. Despite the fact Vivi was afraid of these two, Sanji's able to beat these two so easily. Like, he basically takes the vulture, uses his feet to break the vulture's neck, and he basically beats the otter to a pulp, and takes the object they were carrying with him. An eternal pose to Alabasta. Yep. So, what happened, Mr. 3? Well, he basically, they got freed, thanks to Luffy and Usopp, basically, and Kaido, the duck, basically using a rope and using Mr. 3's own fire to basically destroy his own stuff. And Mr. 3 had to run after Luffy broke his armor. Well, basically got his armor, and he was able to find out exactly where he is after making a bunch of copies of himself. Luffy's able to find the real one really easily. What had Miss Golden Week after this? Well, she, along with other agents who weren't captured with the government, started a restaurant. Yep, that's what happened with them. They started a restaurant. Surprisingly, no, this story was never adapted for the anime. Don't know why, but that would be interesting to see, like, what happened to the Baroque agents? Yep. By the way, that's where Miss Monday ended up, in this restaurant. Yep, she did. But as in the case of Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, They're never seen again in this series that I can think of. They disappear after this arc. I know Mr. 3, he returns for Alabasta. He's absent for the next arc. But he survives. He's perfectly fine. He survives and gets back to he shows up halfway through the Alabasta arc. Probably just as a reminder that he exists. But I'll get to Alabasta soon. But yeah, and then of course then after even though they find out that it takes a year, but luck up Sanjay procured an internal post to go straight to Alabasta. But then Nami, of course, is mentioned that she's like sick. Like, you okay? Nami's like, I'm fine. Yeah, it's later revealed she actually is sick, and they have to go see a doctor. That little thing of Nami getting sick, that sets up the very next arc of the series, Drum Kingdom, which is a debut of a new member of the Straw Hats. I'm not gonna say who it is until I discuss Drum Kingdom. I'll save you a few characters. Yep. And as for Dory and Bragi, they help the Straw Hats get off the island and get past a giant goldfish, which they use the weapon last to power the weapons to make a hole and basically let me get out of there. No problem. Yep. And, well, that's it. I gotta say, for the 2 arcs that basically I covered here, the Heppo one was actually pretty interesting. The Koby-Meppo, that was interesting. I kind of wish we had more of those. You know, these occasional, I mean, in case you're wondering, like, if they need to take a break from, like, adapting Wano, maybe they could, adapt these, well, cover stories. They could do that if they wanted to. If they wanted to basically stray away from the manga for a bit. The cover stories make great episodes. But nope, we have to basically stick with the manga up, despite the fact at times they're kind of getting really close to getting, like, up to date with the manga. And in the case of Wano, not currently, no, because Wano they adapted up till chapter, I think it was like 936, well, they adapted halfway through the chapter, while the manga has got to 983. So, yeah, the manga is roughly almost 50 chapters ahead right now, so the anime is currently not at risk of catching up the manga anytime soon. But yeah, that's it for this particular review. My next review today will be a review of the newest episode, the first episode of Season 2 for Fire Force. Yes, it came back today. I'm going to review it today. Yep, and starting next week. Now, I did find this interesting, though, that Boruto is going to resume on July 5th. Which is in just a couple days. That's when Boruto comes back. So, on Sunday, we had a return of Boruto. On Tuesday is return of Black Clover. Wednesday is return of, is basically ReZero, which I'm doing that now as a regular review. And Friday, of course, is return of Fire, is basically more Fire Force. So yes, once again, we actually have more than we actually are kind of almost back. Starting today, we're kind of almost back to the regular schedule I was doing, with regular anime reviews that had temporarily stopped because of the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, so far, basically, One Piece was the first one to come back. I still haven't heard anything if Case Close come back yet. I haven't heard any word on it yet. I hope it comes back soon. But I heard for the past, couple months of airing nothing but reruns for the series, which I hope eventually they bring back the series. So, yeah. So, today is the first of 4 series to come back. Fire Force is first, then Boruto, then Black Clover, and then ReZero. Yep, I'm definitely looking forward to watching all of them. Yeah, and seeing what chapters they have. Well, ReZero is the first one that basically I'm going to regularly watch, where it's actually going to be, first one is based upon a light novel. Even though, yes, I have reviewed the first season already, which is great, but now I'm doing other regular reviews. Which is awesome. Look up, I've already read the chapters of the book basically adapted from them. Unlike the other series I'm going to review, this one I'm going to review basically talk about what I remember from the light novel, kind of like I do for the regular reviews. I was doing for ReZero. I'm going to do that for that series, but everything else, compare and contrast between the manga and the anime. Yep, and do all 4 the other ones, okay? So, until you see the next video, it's Fire Force. Bye.